Hello, everybody. This is Izzy Fizzy, and hi. It's been a while. Yeah, ever since I left for college in July 2020, I've been in and out, and I'm back, but not 100%, and I'll be explaining that in this video. I'm gonna keep this as raw as possible, and I'm not gonna go into full detail of what has happened, but I'm going to tell you guys enough to understand the severity of what happened. So, to explain where I went, I have to explain a story of somebody I knew. And we're going to call him Jay. Jay and I were friends since high school. And we had decided to become a couple before I moved out to go to college. So we started dating June of 2020. He and I were best friends in high school, as I mentioned before. We had hit it off immediately. We had similar backgrounds, and we hung out a lot. I liked his vibes, and he reached out to me first. See, the whole time I've had friends throughout my life, I've always had to be the one to reach out first. I've barely had friends who would reach out first. And just recently, I realized that I need to stop reaching out first in order to see who were actually my friends and who weren't. But that's a whole other timeline. This video is to explain what happened with me and him and Jay. So yeah, we had hit it off, and at first, I was hesitant on accepting his love confession in 2020. I was worried about his job, and I had standards, and I told him no. And he was disappointed, but he agreed to still be friends, and we were okay with being friends. But for a few months, he would mention how disappointed he was and that we could have been a good couple, and he was just upset, and he said that he was insulted that I had standards like that. And the standards that he was mentioning was that he didn't have a job at the time, and I wanted a partner who had a job, somebody to show that they were able to maintain a job, a stable income. Because I was thinking about the future, because I date to marry, and I was thinking I don't want to date somebody who doesn't have a job right now, because what if he never gets a job in the future? That's what I was worried about. And I was also worried because he didn't really have a career plan in college. He did have a plan, but it wasn't a plan that he was super passionate about, and I wanted to date somebody who had passion. But anyways, those were the standards that he was upset about. And I thought about it, and I started to feel guilty myself. I didn't realize that this was his first step of manipulation. And before I moved out, I realized that I had feelings for him. And despite my standards, I was I'm about to move out. I'm about to go on my own. I'm about to go make my own decisions. So why don't I just go with this, see where it goes? And we started dating. And it was amazing. It was amazing for the first 4 or 5 months. He treated me so well. We talked almost every day. He met up with me before I moved out to say goodbye. And he was so sweet for the longest time. Until October 10th of 2020. For some people who don't know, that is my birthday. Before I continue, I have to warn that what I am about to delve into contains themes of rape, abuse, and then themes of suicide later on. So, even though I put the disclaimer in the beginning of the video, I would like to put this warning on before I continue. So, please listen at your own discretion. October 9th, I had gone up back to my hometown to have a sleepover with our friend group. And then the day after, I was supposed to have brunch with my family with Jay. And we had decided, hey, we haven't had a shower. Let's go clean up at your place and then we'll go meet up with my parents. So we did. And I had gone in the shower with him. And it wasn't like we haven't done that before. We've done that before. So I trusted him. And October 10th of 2020, in that shower, before we had gone to brunch with my family, he raped me. I don't remember much. But I do remember that it hurt. And I didn't realize this until later on, after I had finally broken up with him, that he had revealed himself that day. And I remember the change in his eyes. And I remember the change in his demeanor. He was so respectful about not having sex until marriage. Until that day. And I remember I voiced, like, what if I get pregnant? And he said, oh well, and he continued. And from that day on, the relationship got worse. He started revealing himself gradually. It started off with passive-aggressive comments about how I would act in public, how I looked, how I dressed, and the friends I had around. And my career, he would pretty much critique everything about me. At first I was like, oh, this is some constructive criticism. But later on, he carried more of an attitude with his comments, and I realized, oh, these aren't helpful comments. In November of 2020, that's whenever I started realizing that he was trying to break me away from my friend group. We had gone on a trip to Universal with this friend group. And every night on that trip, we had non-consensual sex. Non-consensual on my part. And I was too scared to say no. Because every time I would say no, he would guilt trip me into having sex. Or he would ask me over and over and over and over again until I said yes. But on that trip, he also made comments about the friend group. A lot of them were very hypocritical comments about the sex life. Like, he would say, oh, well, they do this and this and this, but then the next minute he would do this with me, and it's like, you're a fucking hypocrite. And on that trip, actually, when we were at Universal, we had gotten split up from the friend group. So it was just me and Jay, and then the friend group was somewhere else in the park. I started getting worried because I have a lot of anxiety whenever I am in a big space with a lot of people. I really don't do well at theme parks, even though I really love the rides. I just hate the amount of people that are there. And Jay had gotten upset because I wanted to be back with the friend group, but he wanted us to do something alone. And I was like, okay, we can do that. I just want to make sure that the other guys are like gonna meet up with us soon. We haven't gotten in contact with them for like 10 minutes. And he started saying things like, well, they're untrustworthy. Like, why can't we do stuff on our own? Like, I don't feel like you feel safe with me alone. Like, if anybody tries to try anything with us, I'll fight them. Like, I don't feel like you can trust me. And he kept saying things like that over and over and over again. And I just ended up shutting down. And whenever I had shut down, he continued. And he started saying things like, your friends don't actually care about us. Like, they do all these things that you don't approve of, and you just, like, stay with them. Like, we can't trust them. Like, they do all this stuff that we look down on. And it was disgusting. It was volatile. Because eventually he said, I think we should leave that friend group. And I was angry. I was very angry because I love that friend group. Like, we all have differences. We all do different things. And Jay just didn't like the fact that they did different things compared to us. And that pissed me off. I ended up shutting down, as I mentioned, but I ended up shutting down even more after he made those comments. And after we met up with the friend group, I did not talk to him. I refused to look at him. I refused to acknowledge him. Because whenever I am in that shutdown moment, I don't want to be near the person or cause of what made me shut down. And I understand that it hurt him, but I was extremely conflicted because I loved him, but I also loved my friend group. And even though sometimes I didn't feel like I belonged with them, like, everybody has those moments where they feel like they don't belong in this world with people. But Jay took advantage of that insecurity that I had and fueled it. And after that trip, it just kept getting worse and worse. We kept getting into arguments. He kept trying to change my appearance. He kept trying to change the way I acted in public. And he eventually started criticizing, like, me going to that college that I had worked so hard to get into. I had to argue with my parents to go to this school. I had to reassure them that this is what I wanted to do. I had to reassure so many people that this is what I wanted to do. Because it's not like those ideal degrees to go into. It wasn't an ideal college to go to because that college didn't offer core classes. They just offered the classes that you signed up for. And to hear that from him, whenever he would first initially support me, he was like, I'm really proud that you're doing what you want to do. But then the next minute be like, I'm not sure if you're really going to succeed in this. Like, do you feel like that you're going to succeed in this? I'm not sure if I'm delivering the way he treated me right, but I hope that I am by just recounting these stories. So as I mentioned, on October 10th and during the Universal trip, we had non-consensual sex, and it was non-consensual on my part. This happened on and off throughout our relationship. And every time that we had sex, I felt absolutely sick to my stomach, and I never understood why. I started dissociating every time he raped me, And I didn't realize that I did dissociate until one time Jay mentioned that he didn't want, well, to quote his words exactly, I don't want to fuck a dead corpse. There were so many flags that were in this relationship, but I was so in love with him, and I wanted to believe that he was going to be better, because he kept promising that he would be better. Every argument that we had, every time that we had mentioned a breakup, he would come back and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, I will be better. And he would be better for a short period of time, and then whenever things would get comfortable again, he would go back to his same behaviors, criticizing me, isolating me, and doing things that I didn't want to do. Pressuring me to do things that I didn't want to do. There were so many things that I didn't want to do. I had put up so many boundaries with him, but eventually and gradually he would coerce me into doing it. Not by blackmailing, but just like, I don't even know. I can't think of the word right now. But he would eventually get me to do it. It was either out of guilt, or it was out of annoyance of him asking over and over and over again. And you know what his excuse was for treating me this way? Because he himself had trauma. I want you guys to know and to keep this in mind, that your trauma can explain your actions, but they will never excuse your actions. They will never excuse you for the dumb shit you do, for the most awful shit you do. Now, I have trauma myself. Thanks to him, I am now diagnosed with PTSD, and I'm suffering with memory loss. And I try so hard not to do anything horrible. And so far, I haven't done anything horrible, but I keep myself aware whenever I have these moments of anger, these moments of resentment, that I want to lash out sometimes, that I want to do awful shit. But I remind myself I cannot do that because I would use the excuse that it's my trauma, so I won't do it. Jay, why didn't you do that? Why would you do these things? If you knew you had trauma, why would you do these things hiding behind your trauma? And I remember asking him so many times, why are you so mean to me? You have issues that you need to work on. And he would acknowledge it, and he would say he was sorry, and he would go and get therapy, but he never did. He never did. And he promised he would. He promised he would be a better person. And he never was. So as I mentioned, he would isolate me. He never supported my YouTube work. And I doubt he'll ever see this video, because I doubt he's even subscribed to me. He never supported it. He would claim that he supported it, but it was always comments like, well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this and this and this? Well, you don't do this. It was never in a supportive tone. It was always in a chastising tone. And in this relationship, he always wanted me to be available to call. I couldn't call him because he was busy, but he could call me and I won't have to be busy. Otherwise, he would get upset. So I had to be available all the time. The only time that I didn't have to be available was whenever I was working and whenever I was at school. And that was it. But sometimes I would have to be available when I was working. Sometimes I would have to be available when I was at school. That year that I went to college, that whole entire year, I hated it. I loved the education, but because of that relationship, I didn't want to be in those classes sometimes. I didn't want to learn anymore because I doubted myself. I started doubting if this is what I wanted to do because Jay wasn't happy. Jay wasn't happy with me doing this. Jay always doubted if I would ever succeed in this line of work. And I remember those moments, especially in the one class that I was so excited to learn in. That month was so stressful on the relationship because he kept breaking up with me, but then he kept coming back, and then he kept breaking up with me, then I would end up coming back because I was so used to one of us coming back. And I remember one day in that class, I just left. I lied that I threw up in the bathroom, and I just locked myself in my room. It was that day that I started realizing that I wasn't happy with him. That I wasn't happy with the situation I was in, but I felt so stuck. Because while I was down there for college, I was financially unstable. I had lost my good paying job, and I ended up working at a store that only paid $10 an hour. And with rent in the town that I was in, it was expensive, and I also had to cover so many other things. Sometimes I had to cover for a roommate who, had the same income as me, but could never cover their rent. Sometimes I couldn't afford my own groceries, and I had to rely on him to get food. And I was so embarrassed because my parents had offered to cover for me, but I never reached out because not only was I embarrassed, but I was also scared to tell them that I was back with Jay. The isolation had become so terrible that I was not allowed to tell my parents that I was back with somebody who raped me. Because the first time I had broken up with him, I told them. Because the first time I broke up with him, I realized what he did to me. That he raped me. So every time I went back with him, I was not allowed to tell my parents that I was back with him. Oh, but he could tell his parents, and I could visit his parents with him. No problem. We were back together, yeah. His parents didn't know. But I wanted to tell them. On June 23rd, 2021, I officially cut ties with him. I graduated from the college. I have my degree. I made it through with good grades, despite everything. But the damage was done. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I promised I would keep it raw, and I'm gonna keep it raw. I'm not gonna edit anything out. The only thing I'm gonna edit is the background noise, because this shit's annoying. At the point that I had broken up with him, I had no friends in real life to reach out to. The friend group that I was pressured into cutting ties with was gone. I had to tell my parents that I had gotten back with him. And the day that I had cut ties with him, and the days and weeks after, I had become suicidal. Well, I had become suicidal multiple times throughout that relationship because I knew what he was doing was wrong, but I didn't understand what he was doing was wrong, if that makes any sense. Like, there was that gut feeling that something was wrong. There was that sick feeling every time we had sex that something was wrong, and I never knew what. Like, I knew he raped me, but he was sorry. So that didn't matter, right? I loved him, and he took advantage of that. I forgave people too easily, and he took advantage of that. And I cared for people too much, and he took advantage of that. He became the only thing that I relied on. And he knew what he was doing. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, I just got a wave of emotions coming up. I have been scared to share this story with friends and my audience. And it's not because I'm scared of judgment. It's not because I'm scared of my ex finding out that I'm sharing the story. It was because of how unstable I was by the time I had cut ties with him. I didn't realize that I was in an abusive relationship until much later on. I knew that it was abusive, but I didn't know it was bad abusive. I didn't realize that he had manipulated me so much in the smallest ways until later on. I did not realize that I was no longer me on June 23rd of 2021. I was my passion for sound and for writing and my hobbies was still there, but it felt so gone in that moment. I felt like that Izzy no longer exists. And to this day, I don't think that that girl exists anymore in me. I still write. I've gotten back into it, and I'm so happy that I'm back into it. And I'm back here on YouTube, and I'm finally making this update video that I promised to make so long ago. And I'm so proud of myself for doing that. But in that moment, I didn't know who I was. And just that lack of individuality that I had before I dated Jay, just that comparison caused me to spiral. I had become suicidal multiple times because I didn't see a point in continuing on. I was so angry at myself for allowing Jay to treat me like that. I had been warned that these relationships exist, but I was never warned how they happen. I was never warned how small the manipulation can be and how effective those small things can be to later on grow into something so isolating, so controlling. He had so much control over me, and I am so angry at myself for letting him do that to me. He didn't deserve me like that. He didn't deserve my trust. And he didn't deserve to know me like that. We told each other so much when we were friends. We hung out so much. But I doubt the things he shared with me were true. Now that I know who he really is. So, in regards to the posts I've made from the span of June 2020 to June 2021, I had been back and forth. And then I had made a Twitter post saying that the separation of my ex and my friends has become too much for me to handle. I thought I could take care of it myself, but I couldn't. And so I stated that I needed to seek professional help. I do have help. But with healthcare these days, I wasn't able to get the help I needed so easily. When I had announced my return last time, and I think that was back in August, I believe, things were fine. I had moved out of that horrible apartment after I graduated from college. I moved back to my hometown, and I started living in the same apartment complex as my ex. Not in the same apartment as my ex, but the same apartment complex. And I was only in that situation because I had signed on to that lease when we were still together. The day before he broke up with me, one of the times he had broken up with me. And once you sign on to a lease, it's very difficult to break it. And with that apartment office, I did try to break the lease before I moved in, because I realized I was not going to be happy because of the possibility of seeing him. And I was not able to break the lease unless I paid the market price, which was over $5,000, and I did not have $5,000. Or I had to find somebody to sublease before I moved in, and I was unsuccessful in doing that. So I ended up moving into that apartment. And things were fine for a while, just the occasional panic attack after seeing his car, or hearing that he was around, or the text messages that he sent me whenever I started telling my close friends and his parents that he had raped me. Jay is the type of person who likes to keep up appearances. He doesn't want to look bad in any way, which is why he constantly wanted to change my appearance and the way I acted, because I'm a pretty awkward person in public, but I'm also pretty eccentric. I'm goofy. I like to be goofy. And he didn't like that. So whenever I started telling his parents and one of his close friends and some of my friends that he had raped me, word had gotten to him, and he made a new email to get in contact with me, and he tried to get me to meet with him alone. I refused to go unless I could record the conversation, and he immediately backed off. Of course, I told his parents about that interaction, and I haven't heard from him since, but I have seen his car, and I have heard word about what he's doing now, even if I didn't want to hear it. I pray that he gets the karma that he deserves, because he didn't do this only to me. He did this to his ex before me, and I pray to God he's not doing that to his girlfriend now. So, whenever I had announced my return in August, I was doing fine. I thought I was fine. I was working out. I was in a good job. I had just been promoted to manager, and I felt like that I was ready to move on to the next relationship. So I got a girlfriend, and the relationship was amazing. But then my birthday came around, October 2021, and I got a flashback to the day of the rape. And I saw Jay's face on one of my friends that day. And from that day on, it was just nothing but flashbacks over and over and over again. I was experiencing physical flashbacks. I would sometimes feel his hands on me. I would sometimes feel the sensation of him violating me. And it got to the point where I had a full-on breakdown because I did not feel like I was in control. On October 30th of 2021, we were having a movie night with our friends, and I had finally reconnected with the friends that I was forced to cut ties with. And we were having a movie night, right? I had the worst flashback in the bathroom. I was back at his apartment, and I was scared to death. I was wondering where my friends were, and I was wondering where I was. I was wondering if I was back in my apartment. I was wondering if all that I had done was for nothing, because I felt like I was back in March or April or May or one of those months that I was in his apartment. And I realized that I had to get help. I was never able to get professional help until I admitted myself to a psych ward of November 1st. All I wanted was to get a therapist because I kept experiencing flashbacks. They gave me medication, and they told me, yeah, we'll get you a therapist. And you know how healthcare is. They just gave me a list of numbers to call by the time I was discharged. I wasn't happy with that. But nevertheless, I tried to adjust after I was released. But my girlfriend had broken up with me because of her own reasons, and I respect her reasons. But I was so heartbroken because I was terrified that it was me who scared her away, who gave her the wrong impression of what dating was supposed to be. But anyhow, yeah, my girlfriend had broken up with me. My friends started treating me differently. And the medication that I was given at the psych ward to be put on outside was in the wrong order that I was supposed to take it. So during the day, I wasn't able to function. I had so many heart palpitations. I was having panic attacks, and I wasn't able to function at all while I was at work or while I was by myself. There was one instance where I was literally on the floor because I couldn't move. So I had to readmit myself to the psych ward to get help, because the earliest time that I could see my psychiatrist or any of the doctors was in December, and I didn't want to wait. Like, I felt like I was losing my mind. So I admitted myself back in there. And I was in there for 3 more weeks. And that was whenever the treatment team had concluded that my triggers were being caused, like the core of my triggers were caused because I was in that apartment, because that apartment layout was very similar to Jay's. So any little thing was causing me flashbacks, and they were right. Where I reside now, I am not getting any flashbacks, just sad memories. And that's a good thing. I mean, I didn't choose to move back to where I am now, but, you know, it is what it is. But anyways, I finally got the help I needed after I had demanded over and over again that it was the medication that was affecting me. So they changed up my medication, and I finally got the therapist I needed. I went through EMDR sessions, and if you don't know what that means, it means eye movement. I believe it's eye movement derealization, and let me look it up on my phone real quick. I'm sorry. No. Okay, so EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it's a form of psychotherapy in which the person being treated is asked to recall distressing images, so basically flashbacks and horrible memories. And then the therapist directs the patient in one type of bilateral stimulation to help sort patients through that trauma. So in those therapy sessions, I had to remember my rape, my first time that I was raped, and then all the other times and memories that were connected with it. And the goal was to acknowledge that it wasn't my fault, because I believed for the longest time that it was my fault, because I had gone in the shower with him, so it was my fault. It wasn't. No, because I trusted him. Because we had done it before, and he never did that, so I trusted him not to do it, and he did it anyways. This video is getting long. I'm just now looking at the thing. Oh damn. I am so sorry. I meant to keep this video short, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, let me just cut this video short. I'm starting to get tired. I'm sorry, the emotional waves are getting worse, and it's draining. So to make this short, well, in conclusion, I was in an abusive relationship from June 2020 to June 2021 by a narcissist. That's what I believe Jay is. It was emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. And I was isolated, both in real life and on the internet. I have tried to return many times, but every time I try to return, something happens. And hopefully now that there are answers to a lot of the major problems that I was experiencing, and now that there are solutions that I am now working with, I guess that's the way to word it, I want to come back. I won't be coming back now because the living situation that I am in, it's not fundamental to the work that I want to do for sound. I have terrible internet connection, so I doubt this will upload great. And yeah, I hope to come back around April or May. And I will still be active on Twitter. I am occasionally active on Twitter. But right now, I just want everyone to know that I have graduated from college. I was in an abusive relationship while I was at that college. So that's why I've been in and out. And that's why I haven't really been updating anything for that fundraiser that I have. It's still up. And I'm still, willing to take donations if anybody wants to. I'm not worried about income anymore. I have a great job right now. An amazing job. I love it. I lost my track of thought. I'm sorry. Train of thought. That's the phrase. But I just want everyone to know that the Izzy Fizzy that everyone knew back in June 2020, she doesn't exist anymore. I don't think that I will be coming back as that person anymore. I still want to do what I've been planning to do. I still want to finish the Dazzlings. I still want to start my dystopian radio show. I still want to bring my story to life after I finish writing it. But I don't think that I will be involved in communities anymore. I think I'll just be working on original stuff. I don't know. This is all a big maybe right now. This is just how I feel right now, because at the moment, I'm still putting together the pieces of myself that I had lost when I was in that relationship. I'm still trying to figure out who I am, despite everything that's going on, and despite all the solutions that I've been given, and despite all the help I've been given. I still do not feel like myself. And sometimes when I look at the pictures that I have of myself during the relationship and before the relationship, that girl died after what Jade did to me. And I know that sounds edgy. I absolutely hate saying it, but it's the best way to describe how I feel about myself. I'm still Izzy, but I'm more of a guarded Izzy now. I'm having trouble trusting people again, and I'm having trouble coming back because I'm afraid that everyone that I have worked with so far in my life as Izzy Fizzy or Minty Snowflake or Snowdust, that they will expect a version of me that no longer exists. And I hope for everyone who is watching this, I hope you all will still accept and love me for who I am now. I will come back. I will be back. I will be around. Just not as much as I used to. And whenever I'm ready, I will be back. And I will be ready to share and create what I want to do. Just not right now. I wanted to make this video to explain where I have been and where I will be. And I wanted to share my story because he doesn't deserve to have this story be quiet. And soon I will be sharing this with people who I know personally. And Jay, if you ever so happen to watch this, fuck you. Though, anyways. I think I've shared enough. So, yeah, I think I'll be signing off now. This is Izzy Fizzy. I'm very sorry for how long this video is going to be. But, yeah. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Adios.